Hello, this is going to be a new build diary for a crossbow build that I've been thinking about. I still think minions are pretty good. I'll still play my minion guy, but I wanted to play some crossbow stuff. Primarily the cold version that they're trying to push. I played the lightning one back in 0.1 and 0.2, but I wanted to try something a little bit different for 0.3. There's the fire one, and then there's a cold kind of style that you could do. So primarily I'm just using Permafrost bolts as like my main clear and way to freeze. I'm then going to Frag rounds to consume the freeze. And then I'm trying to figure out what the fuck to do in between the freeze duration, because it does share the cooldown with like stun, pin, and all that stuff. So I got some Glacial bolts here, Hailstorm rounds here, and I'll go over what I got in those in a sec. But first, I guess just pop into a boss.
What nonsense do you speak?
No matter. Now you die!
Royal transfusions! Drown in the horror of your choice. Maneuver! Withstand the depths of die! Stay strong, Selena! Maneuver! Our sacrifice is long remembered! Now, we submit.
That's kind of the general gist. Walking around run-of-the-mill stuff. I'm mostly using Permafrost bolts to shoot some guys. I could have placed War Banner down first. I just keep forgetting, because I still feel like banners are pretty clunky to use. Maybe if they had a quicker use time, so they're a little bit more instantaneous, that'd be sick. But I'll go over what exactly I have currently. So right now, like I mentioned, Permafrost bolts is what I'm using for AoE clear. I just keep this ammo on, left click. If there's anything that happens to just not die after maybe like 1 or 2 shots, then I'll swap to frag rounds to just consume the freeze and try to nuke it. If it's a rare and it didn't happen to die, then I'll probably slap on Glacial Bolt for, after the fact and try to kill it that way. So a lot of micromanaging of ammo and ammunitions. There's at least 4 that I'm actively using right now. Still don't know if this is the correct setup. Still don't know if these are the correct support gems. I've been trying to test a lot of different things. I've just kind of settled with this for probably about 10 or so levels. But in frag rounds, I got projectile acceleration. So without it on, kind of goes everywhere, because you do have AoE that affects it. Then with projectile speed, it happens to go off screen quicker. Or not quicker, but it goes off screen more. So the idea is I can hit targets from very far away, but also the projectile speed is considered more damage in this sense. Because increases and reductions to projectile speed also apply to projectile damage with the support skills. So in this scenario, this is more damage. I do have execute here. Like if enemies get on low life, that's 50% more damage. Because again, I'm in the headspace of like, if I'm going to consume that freeze, I want to make sure that the enemy has as low as health as possible. But if you saw fighting those two unique guys, sometimes that just isn't the case, and I don't know if it's because of my weapon currently. It could be. And again, I'm only like 63, so maybe this makes more of a difference later on. I have Cold Attunement. Reason for this. Not the initial damage, because this is still 100% physical. Which this still benefits from it. But 25% of damage as extra cold damage on top of this amount is a decent chunk. This was buffed in this patch. The conversion, I think it was 80% before in 0.2 and 0.1. It's now 100%. There's now this secondary explosions. I don't know if the shotguns, if it does, I don't really feel like there's a difference. But at least to compensate, there is this more damage against unique enemies as the freeze mechanic is a little bit harder to build up on bosses than it is for normal targets. So that's compensation. And then I have this. Destroying an ice crystal grants support skills 1% of damage gained as extra cold. I thought this was going to be sick because there was a new line added here where bolts that hit ice crystals cause it to explode. This did not exist before, but you'll notice that there's something wrong. I don't have the buff. But if I happen to like just destroy it with Permafrost bolts, I get the buff. So I don't really know if it's a bug or if it's intentional. I hope it's not a bug because it would be an extra way to get some more damage in the build. But again, still with support gems, I have no idea what I'm doing. This is more of just like randomly testing stuff and see what works. I then have for Permafrost bolts, projectile acceleration 3, which again, this is more damage. Ricochet 3. So initially while I was leveling, I was using Pierce. Pierce only allows one target to be pierced. However, Ricochet 3 pierces all targets. So it's not just the initial one. It's not the second one and then it stops. It's all targets, which is really good. Cool, good. What are those words? This helps tremendously when trying to clear and using this as like your main clear speed thing. Maybe if I can get this Hailstorm rounds to be more of my AoE clear, I can take this out and put something like more freeze buildup or something. At least for now, it feels really good to use. It also has the modifiers granting additional projectiles instead cause the projectiles to chain additional time from terrain. I do have a node, I think, here. You might have seen it in the footage where I was shooting against the wall and like the wall bullet redirected, and it was like a mini cone of my permafrost. And same thing with fragmentation rounds. Actually kind of sick for environments where you can kind of hit a wall and it will like bounce to shotgun a target. I do have Ice Bite because I'm freezing enemies all the time. It's just permanently extra damage as cold. For Glacial Bolt, this has always been here. Oops. You summon this, or you shoot it, creates the walls. Walls explode for 100% of fizz as extra cold. Or I can't talk. It's 1 a.m. But if they're shattered, there's more AoE effect of the Ice Crystal detonation. This Ice Crystal shattering looks like it should work with this. So the AoE explosions from this, I assume, are the Ice Crystals exploding and not Herald of Ice. Again, I don't know. Maybe I can test out later by removing some AoE. This is a new one. Support gem that allows the ice crystals to impale targets. So whatever damage dealt to enemies, it will impale the target. This creates a lot of impale stacks. I cannot consume them fast enough. At least with the frag rounds. So I don't know realistically what to use. Hailstorm rounds kind of does that, but if you can take a look, I'm probably not going to hit the same target multiple times. It's just going to radiate everywhere, right? Still trying to figure this one out, but I think it's sick. Herald of Ice, I do cold stuff, makes sense. War Banner, again, I don't really know what to do with my spirit. I do have Deadly Herald in here. Fresh or clear, why not? War Banner, it does give more attack damage, more attack speed, but it's the clunkiness of placing the banner down and trying to gain glory. On bosses, it makes more sense because you can get glory faster. But this would almost mean like I have to invest in banners, which seems kind of shit. There is something, though, although I don't know if I could properly utilize it. This is a side tangent, but I wanted to get it out of my head. I'll just choose you. There's this new refraction. So 1 and 2 make it so armor applies to elemental damage taken. I don't have a lot of armor, so I feel like it doesn't make much sense, especially if I get sorcery ward, which I'll go over later, why I chose Witch Hunter. But Refraction 3 makes it so this refractive disillusion applies elemental exposure. But I'm not going to have a lot of armor to make this even remotely close. Because against a unique, I would basically need to have, what is it, 8,000, or not even 8,000. I would need so much armor to even get 40% or something like that. I don't really know. If I can get exposure on this build, that'd be sick. I don't know what to do right now, if you can't tell. Hailstorm rounds, I do have area of effect. I have, again, projectile acceleration because it's more damage, gets the targets faster, and the initial shot to start spawning the lesser shots is quicker. I got fresh clip because there's 27 bolts, so that's 20% more damage. Nimble reload does affect the speed of which bolts generate over time. So in a way, it's like a clear speed thing. Still no idea. There was a thought with Plasma Blast for single target. So I freeze a guy. There's this support gem where if I channel up to 40% more damage, if I consume a freeze, that's 40% more damage, and an additional 20% more on a frozen target, so 60. And then hit and run for just skill speed so I can charge it up faster. But I feel like I should probably have more damage in here. I still feel like Plasma Blast is shit. I think they need to lower this total attack time down to 1 second. And just maybe it would feel better. But the 2-second charge up time, it's like freeze makes it possible. But even then, I don't know. I feel like this is to cook. Skill tree. I have Witch Hunter. I went Calling Strike first, and then I went Decimating Strike. Calling Strike is better for normal mobs, and it is worse for uniques. Decimating Strike is the opposite. If you saw in the footage how the initial chunk was pretty big, that's 30% life. So I only have to worry about 70% of their total life to do damage with. And in a way that's like decent. Is it better than something like No Mercy, where you get 40% more just by shooting a target? Maybe. But I have to spend 4 points to get this. And I'm already going to spend 2 points regardless because of some of these ideas here. I was trying to really think of a way to use this Weapon Master. It went from 20 and 4 to now 100 in this. Then you can effectively have 2 complete separate trees. But at least for this setup, I don't think I could properly utilize 2 trees. Like the pathing for what I envisioned, I wouldn't be going super out of my way. I can maybe see this though for the fire build. So you have 1 tree devoted to being grenades focused, a area of effect, and then you have a second tree that is devoted to more of like typical crossbow stuff with rapid fire and then maybe incendiary shot with the whole heat mechanic. Zealous Inquisition. So this has always been something that I've really enjoyed. It's just extra clear speed, right? Most people think it's a waste of 2 points, and I could definitely see that. Because it's 10% chance for all enemies and then 20% chance for undead and demons. Thing is, though, Abyss is all undead targets. And in this league, you're probably going to be fighting Abyss a lot. Just normal monsters in the game, there's a lot of undead, there's a lot of demons. So I feel like it's oftentimes more 20% chance than 10% chance. Again, this is also strictly just an on-kill effect. It's not like a permanent all-the-time effect like these two are, or these two are. So I was considering this for my third. I was considering Sorcery Ward for my third, but either way, I think I'm getting this anyways, just to be able to mitigate elemental damage. Sounds good. If I don't go Zealous, then obviously I'll go Ceremonial. Just a no-brainer. Pathing-wise, I went down the normal route for crossbows, realistically, for projectile-based stuff. I went attack speed here just for quality of life. You can go proj damage if you really want to. I went into here first. I then pathed over to here. this is a new cluster. So it has increased damage against immobilized enemies, and it has increased immobilization buildup. What is immobilization? Keyword states that any target is immobilized if it cannot move. So this is frozen, pinned, heavy stunned, or electrocuted. I haven't played around with it too much between frozen and pinned or frozen and electrocuted, but at least frozen and heavy stunned, they share the same lockout period, and I wouldn't be surprised if pin and electrocute also share that same lockout period. But at least while the target is frozen, they take 20, 40, 50% increased damage because of the intimidated. And then even more buildup. So, why not? I want to freeze targets faster. And then I pathed downward. I went to the left. I picked up these here. Went over to the crossbow. I did try this out for having it be immediate when you reload. It is almost the same thing as this. To not consume a bolt. And I feel like you should treat it that way. So it's almost like 60% chance to not be reloading or consuming a bolt at any point in time, which means you're getting more shots per second, right? Because at least with what I'm doing, you shoot, you reload. You shoot, you reload. So, it's kind of okay. I might pick it up later. I don't know. Then I actually went over to pick up this stuff, which this is also new. This has Culling Strike Threshold. So 5, 10, 15. And then here has an extra amount. So, you know, it's a decent chunk. Life on kill, mana on kill. And then even more Culling Strike Threshold if they are immobilized. So again, frozen, pin, heavy stun, electrocuted. I think in general, this is more of like a clear speed thing. I feel like against bosses, while it can be beneficial, with what I'm doing, I'm consuming the freeze instantly, right? And I'm instantly getting rid of this status debuff. Whereas, like, if I were to sit there and freeze a target, let it be frozen, that would make sense. But it's awkward against bosses. That's where the plasma blast was coming to play, right? So I freeze a target. That's 4 seconds where they're not doing shit. I'm charging up for at least 2 seconds. I let that bitch go and hope that shit dies. But I haven't really got any practical use out of it. I path down here. Rare and unique damage. Attack speed. But then just baseline increased Culling Strike Threshold for rare and unique enemies. So in total, at least against a rare target where I can reliably freeze something and try to one-shot it, the Culling Strike Threshold is increased by like 115% increase. So it's what? Against normal mobs, that's 60+% Culling Strike Threshold. Against magic, that's 40%. Rare, that's maybe 21, 22. So it's not bad. And then unique, if the conditions align, that would be at least 10, 11% Culling Strike Threshold, which is not bad. That's like damage I don't have to do to the boss. Then I went over to this attack speed cluster, quality of life, blind on hit. I think any build that's in this area should pick this up, since blind makes it so enemies are less accurate against you. they have less evasion rating, so you hit them more frequently. And then I picked up these here. This is new. It does have movement speed. I'm immune to hinder and maim. Reduce slowing potency. And then this ignore penalties of armor basically just reads as like 8% increased movement speed. Feels okay. I don't think it's the same as this stuff. For the reduced movement speed penalty while moving. I still think this is kind of BIS. Future ideas on the tree. There's a jewel socket here. There is also, if I pick up the jewel socket, like I can pick up the elemental damage here. I can pick up the pen. In fact, I probably should, all things considered. There is freeze build up here. I had this on my mind. Just freeze shit a lot faster. If I need more damage, there's a couple different ways I could do it. There's this thematic node here for kind of like the whole witch hunting thing. Increase damage against everything, but then strictly just against demons. Increased duration of ailments on beasts. Immobilization buildup on constructs. So think of like Vol. And then crit strike against humans. All of this gets combined into 50% for all of those. So, again, like I mentioned, undead and demons are a fairly common archetype of enemies to shoot at. So, while you're not getting the full benefit of damage all the time, the other things here do kind of help in general. There's also this over here. Increased damage against undead enemies. So, against Abyss, be pretty good. It also has some life regen rate. Reduce effective curses. So you can either go right here to get those, or more life regenerate. Undecided about this area. If I need accuracy, I got some AC here with some attack damage, so I don't have to path anywhere. I do have the ability to pick up some projectile damage here. I can go for a more generic approach, especially with stats, by picking up this stuff. Jack of all trades. And then there are some like projectile damage things here. Projectile speed will increase my damage because of the support gems, right? But at least for right now, I'm going to go into armor and evasion stuff. Because again, eventually I'm getting sorcery reward, so I might as well invest in this shit now. Side note, at some point I did think about companions. In the back of my head, it scratches. That's the word. It scratches constantly whenever I see this to be like, damn. That's like 22% increased damage for each click. But then it's companions. And pathing over there is kind of shit. Although, this right here, it seems kind of okay. I don't have to path anywhere. If a companion's right next to me, I get some damage, some defense. Companions get my strength, so they just get life. Flat life. I do have a way to transfer damage from myself to my companion. And then also, I can leech to my companion. So this is kind of like a defensive companion node area. Kind of interesting. Think about it. There are nodes over here for like armor applies to elemental damage, but undecided about this. I'm not going to have a lot of armor. Maybe it's going to help. And then there's this thing here. Sure, armor applies to lightning damage. So it's not like the generic, but you can also find this stuff on gear. For gear, I have this. For my previous build, I do have a lot of currency to spend. So while I was leveling, I was just constantly buying crossbows. Not everyone's going to have the ability to do this. So your leveling experience might feel a little bit worse than what it was for me. And then it's just your typical defense, and if you can afford it, offense. Some of this stuff I had lingering around just from playing the game, like this and this. I do want to make a mention though for anyone who does want to use crossbows. Sorry, this is like 31 minutes into the video. I probably should have added this at the front. But if you happen to find a crossbow that has really good damage, like the rolls are pretty decent for both the percent and flat, what you can do is you can guarantee these mods being safe on the item, and you can slap on this plus the level of attack skills.
Have an order?
You do this by picking up where is it? This essence. Perfect essence of battle. The plus the level is a suffix. So it's going to try and add a suffix to the crossbow, right? But if the crossbow has 6 modifiers, it then needs to only look at removing suffixes. So it's kind of interesting of how you can play this. Where, like, if you happen to find, again, a crossbow that has really good 3 prefixes for physical damage, maybe even flat damage of an element, you can then just use that essence on here, get really lucky out of 3 rolls. I think that's pretty much it. I'll be playing this going into tomorrow, but tomorrow I go back to work, so probably won't be playing as much. But I'm still going to try to push this as far as I can because I like this archetype. And I just like crossbows in general, so we'll see. Thanks for staying around for 32 plus minutes. And I'll see you guys later. Peace.